Hello and welcome to the Neurodivergence and Mental Health podcast. My name is Sally Nilsson and I'm a psychotherapist, published author, public speaker and mum. I discovered my autism and ADHD aged 56 in March 2021, and having rewritten my life story, I'm on a quest to advocate for neurodivergent community. I hope you enjoy listening to my incredible guests sharing their experiences of autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette's and OCD. We talk about growing up, education, work and personal stories, and how mental health has played its part in shaping lives. Our conversations cover spectrums, traits, challenges, acceptance and successes. So sit back, relax and find out what it means to feel, think and be different in a neurotypical world. So hello Chantelle, and thank you so much for coming on to the Neurodivergency and Mental Health podcast. We're just gonna, I'd read an article about you. I'll come back to that a bit later. But I was so interested in what you said and where you work and what you've done and your experiences that I really wanted to get you on. So just to sort of as an icebreaker, rather than me do a lengthy introduction, it would be really, really nice if you can just do a quick introduction, name, age if you want to, where you live and a little bit about what you do. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So hi Sally, and thank you for having me. So I have recently changed jobs. So I was working as a medical laboratory assistant, processing patient samples within the NHS, and I now have taken on the position of a degree apprenticeship. So I study at uni, distance learning, and learn on the job. So it's working in a quality control laboratory and also learning about the manufacturing process at the plant. So I've got a lot to learn.
You have, and you did mention to me just before we started recording that the people who you're working with, they're trying to give you a feel of the whole company, and you did mention that, yeah, that's very good, and you kind of what you want to find out all about the company, but the structure and everything's a little bit tricky. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think so. I think unfortunately the company are very good, but they've got a bit of a staffing issue. One of the staff member that would probably be training me is off, unfortunately, unexpectedly. But I think for me, I pretend to want to focus on a small area and have a full understanding of that small area and then branch out. And I think at the moment they're giving me this massive overview and it's very hard to kind of see how everything fits together, and it feels like it's a jumbled mess, and it's it's a bit more effort untangling it than if they were to just present me with, let me get comfortable. And especially I go into work and I'm not quite sure what to expect with my day, and sometimes at the minute, because the training's a bit, I'm moving between departments, they're not quite sure when they have me, and then they've not necessarily prepared a training activity. So, but I think, under the circumstances, they're doing the best they can and they're really welcoming. And I think I'm sure when the staff member returns, I'll start getting a more thorough training program in place.
And no one likes being the new person. And I've had 23 jobs, Chantelle, so I've been the new person so many times, and it takes about a week. It does take longer, but it takes a week just to find your feet and sort of get into it. So I just wish you all the very best over the next few days and weeks, and
Thank you.
I hope it runs a little bit smoother. So I'd love to know, if that's okay, what is your neurodivergency?
So I am autistic, diagnosed formally, and it was suggested that I consider looking into an ADD, attention deficit diagnosis, which is something that I've never really, to be honest, I never really thought autism was me until a few years ago. And attention deficit, I think even more so, I think I have this stereotypical idea in my head that I'm just now kind of starting to challenge and come around to it as maybe a possibility. So I'm currently looking at exploring a diagnosis for that, or an
I,
assessment for that.
well, it's and it's definitely something I've come across. It's this is me. I was going for an autism assessment, and they were saying, no, you have autistic traits, which means absolutely nothing. You have autistic traits, but you're marking very high for ADHD. But at the end of the day, for late diagnosed women and for lots of people anyway, there is, it's very, very common to be autistic and ADHD. It's all fun and games, but I tell you what, on YouTube, there's a fantastic chap. He's Australian, called Paul Micallef, and he and I can let you know. I'll send you the email about him. Actually, he's fantastic, and he does a really good video, autism versus ADHD, and it shows you what's autism, what's ADHD, and then like a Venn diagram where you fit in the middle. And that was really helpful for me, so I could say, that's that, and that's that. So one step at a time. It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate at the moment. So how long ago did you discover that you're autistic?
So I was formally diagnosed about a year ago, and it kind of came on the horizon about 3 years ago. So it's still relatively new. I'm still kind of getting my head around it, and I think, I'm getting to a place now where I'm feeling a bit more kind of comfortable with it, because I think when you get the diagnosis, it's very strange. It's like nothing's changed, but everything's changed in a way, because nothing's changed because you've always been this person, but all of a sudden your whole perception of yourself and how you fit into the world has shifted, and you reevaluate everything. You go over everything from the past, every little
Yes.
every little memory you reanalyze to see, oh, was that because of my autism, so I've done that, and I think you talk about it an awful lot when you're first diagnosed, because all of a sudden you kind of idiosyncrasies and all your kind of unusual behaviors, and you have an explanation for, so you constantly kind of drilling it into people. No, I'm not being weird, I'm not being awkward, or this is because this is why I'm this way. So you talk about it so much, I think you kind of but I think one of my things that I'm still doing a lot is I'm still feeling the need to constantly explain myself when
Yeah.
probably I don't always need to. So yeah, I think that's
What
something.
what are people saying though? Friends and family. What are they saying when you're saying to them, I've got a formal diagnosis, and this is it? Because you're late diagnosed, like I am, and people. Well, certainly my people, they sort of say, oh yeah, but we've always known you like that. We just call you Mad Sally or something like that. Oh, well, we've always known you a bit weird and everything else. What have people around you said to you?
So I think it's made them evaluate whether they could be neurodiverse themselves. I think sometimes it makes them more understanding, and sometimes they get frustrated because the comments, that kind of the little digs that family like to have at each other, I kind of bat away with the diagnosis, like shoot, and I think sometimes they find that frustrating, that they can't kind of always have those little digs anymore, because sometimes I take it, but I always have, sometimes taken those things quite
That's really
personally.
good. Yeah, well, it's good that you
So
can do that because, on the ADHD front, there's rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and you can take lots of criticism and rejection from some areas, but certain people who are very close to you emotionally, if they say something, it can be really upsetting. But we're learning. I think we're going to be learning every day until the end, really, because we just pick up something new, don't we? And it's quite fun,
yeah,
really, isn't it, in a way?
I think for me, I think I am quite sensitive to that, because growing up I always had a sense that there was something different. I never would have dreamt it was autism in a million years. I never would have had that understanding of autism to, you know, to realize that. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't have had the self-awareness maybe to see it in myself back then. But I knew there was something different about me, and I knew it was right at the core of who I was, in the way that I thought and the way that I felt. And for me, I kind of interpreted it as something like really wrong or something really bad was at the core of who I was. So I felt like a bad person, even though I was a very good student and I practically never got into any trouble, and I still felt like there was something bad. And every good thing that I did, it was like I was trying to prove that I wasn't bad. And it was like I had a tick list, and the minute I did anything wrong, I still remember the 2 occasions in primary school that I got in trouble for talking. I still remember them now, because it was like, it really had an effect on me, because it was like I felt almost evil, because even though I didn't do anything wrong, I knew that the way my brain worked was different. So now I think understanding that, you know, it's I'm not bad, it's just different, is really liberating, and really, yeah, it means a lot to me, because I know it sounds so strange, and logically I know that, you know, I'm not, you know, nobody's just like evil, got an evil core, and I knew that I wasn't doing anything that was bad.
Yeah.
But I still felt, because I knew there was something that wasn't how I thought it should be, wasn't how everybody else, I didn't feel the same way, I didn't think the same way. And I just, as a child, I just inherently thought that that difference meant something bad.
And it's sad, you know, it's sad to hear you say that. And you know, we read so many articles, and you know, we listen to podcasts, and you know, and we hear it time and time again, you know, that this story about being a child and growing up. And I've certainly got a pretty big history, but now I'm autistic and ADHD. All the badness and everything has been taken away from it, because the reason I was like that was because I was autistic and ADHD. So how was it for you growing up? And you know, just in your, you know, in your own words, however you want to say it, but it's kind of, you know, primary, middle, secondary school and college. Just, you know, give me kind of an overview of what it was like. Were you bullied or anything like that? What were the teachers like?
Yeah, I was very studious, so I was very much, you know, the child that would be labelled the geek. I was, you know, I excelled academically. I was very much stuck to the rules, kind of like rigidly. So I think, you know, when people talk about autism and ADHD, they generally associate it with problems in school, and mine
Yeah.
wasn't kind of apparent like that. I think, you know, I was quite shut down really. I internalized a lot. I lived in my own kind of little world, and I don't think I really had a sense of how I was feeling for a lot of it. I think that it's quite difficult to explain really. I think that I lived in my own world, and I felt things quite intensely as like physical things, like
Yeah.
so if I was sad, it would be like a physical feeling that I wouldn't recognize the emotional kind of connection to it necessarily. I'd get very worked up if I did anything wrong, if I didn't get the right answer or anything like that. And at the time, I didn't really feel like there was a problem. But I think looking back, I was lonely. You know, I was sad. I was anxious a lot, lacked confidence, and I think looking back, in some ways, I feel quite neglected. I feel like, so for example, um, at the end of primary school, the year 6 leavers trip, we went to London, Llandudno, if you're Welsh, and they left me.
Oh no.
They
Oh
left me,
no.
and it was right after my granddad had passed away as well. So
Oh my goodness me. How long were you left for?
I can't remember, a while.
You must have
Um,
been terrified.
so they'd no, I was just shut down. I was just kind of like in shock, you know.
I bet you were. I bet you were.
I think, you know, coming back afterwards, I think it, you know, that really affected the way I felt about myself, because nobody noticed that I wasn't there. And it really made me question how much kind of value I brought to, you know, a group. You know, and there's other occasions as well. I think because of the way I express myself, because when I was talking with about kind of emotional things, I wouldn't always be emotional. I would be sometimes quite flat. I don't know if it's my way of coping with it or what, but I remember like one instance, gosh, this was back in year 2, and I'd gone taking the register to the office, so we had paper registers then.
Yes.
And I remember there was this boy, and he put his hands around my throat, but he didn't press hard, but he put his hands around my throat. And I remember just going back to the teacher and saying, this lad just put his hands around my throat, and she just didn't do anything, because like I wasn't crying or that.
Yeah.
They don't kind of take it on board. And sometimes I felt kind of invisible, because I did just get on with my work and do stuff. So, I mean, my GCSE science lessons, I remember one teacher just not giving me a sheet, not giving me a worksheet. And I remember for weeks, I remember asking her for a sheet, and she just didn't seem to be listening to me. So I didn't know what to do. So I remember I just used to read the Metro, which is our local, one of our newspapers, and I just used to sit and read it, because I didn't know what to do, because I wasn't really somebody to cause a ruckus. And you know, I'd asked her for a sheet. And she used to put her foot on my stool as I was sat on my stool.
Oh
And
no, I wouldn't like that.
I
Oh,
used to
dear.
move forward, and she'd move her foot forward, and in the end I wouldn't be on my chair. I'd just be pretending to sit down holding my chair.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I have no idea why. In some ways I was just invisible. I think it was because I didn't really express myself, that it was just easy for them to forget I was there. So yeah, a sense of neglect, and sometimes of being taken advantage of as well. So again, in primary school, we're doing the sex ed classes, and there was a young girl who wasn't allowed to go to the classes. Her parents had declined on religious grounds, and I was pulled out of the class, and I supervised this other child that was my age during this lesson.
Why did they choose you, and how did that affect you missing out on sex ed?
Well, I don't know, but it's just, you know, why should I have missed out? Just me supervising this other child my age.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember being asked on the playground, rather than playing, to guard some ice, so that children didn't go play in the ice and fall over. And just standing in the playground guarding some ice.
That is very odd. I remember when I was at school, I got taken out of my secondary school. It was really rough, and I was really struggling and getting bullied and getting into trouble and everything else. I was put into a private school. It only had 220 girls in it, and I remember I got a treble detention for my look, and my look was my look. I wasn't trying to do an insolent look, you know. I wasn't trying to do that insolent look. It was just this expression on my face, and it used to drive the teachers mad, and they would send me off. I wonder if this is alexithymia, you know, that thing about, you know, having the emotions inside of you, not being able to name them, perhaps not really understanding how other people are feeling, and not getting them appropriately right, you know. So, you know.
See, I've found that I was quite empathetic to other people, and in some ways I felt their emotions better than my own. I think because the way I expressed emotions was generally, I suppose I received negative reactions. I learned to keep mine quite enclosed. So sometimes I feel like I was in some ways overly attuned to other people's emotions, to the point when I couldn't always kind of acknowledge my own. And I think that's why I shut down quite a lot, because it was a bit overwhelming, kind of feeling all these things so intensely. But yeah, I think I was very internalized. I remember kind of preteen, high school, and I forgot about it for a long time because I just put it in a box in my mind. But my vision used to tunnel in and out.
Yeah.
I used to kind of lose sight, and looking back, it never even once crossed my mind to tell anybody.
I
It just
think that
never
is
ever crossed my mind. I
I
thought
think
I was
it's a
going mad
stress
and
response.
imagining it.
Yeah, I
Just
think that is a stress response. I know that when I feel anxious, it does affect my vision. It definitely
yeah,
does.
it is anxiety. I've not had it that bad in recent years, but it never once crossed my mind to tell anybody. It
No.
just didn't.
So
And I
you
thought I
went
was
through
going crazy.
school and college, and you got to university, and you got a BSc honours in chemistry. Was that?
That's what I'm working towards now.
Oh, I see. In your
Yeah.
university with
So
your apprentice,
I
yeah.
had a difficult time at the end of high school and through college. That was kind of, I think, when my emotions kind of hit me. I had a bit of a mental breakdown, and my college weren't particularly good at dealing with things either, following on from the path of everybody else. I think they were probably worse. And unfortunately, my mental breakdown came probably right at the end of high school, so probably not the best time for continuity
No.
and support.
Did you have to take time out and be at home for a certain amount of time? How did you cope with your breakdown?
So so it was quite severe, really. I didn't cope very well for a long time, and there wasn't necessarily a lot of support. People didn't quite know how to help, and people were, I think, in some ways a little too intimidated to even try.
I don't
So
know what to do, because it's what it looks like. There's a neurotypical sort of meltdown or emotional outburst and a neurodivergent person outburst. It just looks different. And I think they get scared, don't they? Or they just don't know what to do. But that doesn't help you, does it? You need help at that point.
yeah, I think for me it was everything had been bottled up for so long, and that was the way I would cope with things. And then things had started to feel like they were getting out of control with like school and all the changes, and then stuff in the personal life, and you know
Layering up, things layering up. Yeah,
and I
it's when
think for me
life
it was
events
like it was
layer
like
up.
waking up and suddenly feeling things, and suddenly just like really intensely, and kind of
Yeah.
noticing the outside world more, because I'd have just blocked it all out. I'd have been in my own world. I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have noticed any of it. I used to walk into lampposts when I was younger because I'd just be daydreaming. Like I'd just be entirely in my
Yeah.
head. I'd just straight into them.
Well, that doesn't sound in the slightest bit weird to me. I mean, but you made it through. You made it through, and you started out in the working environment. I just want to make sure we get everything in, because what you're telling me is just it's so meaningful for other autistic people. You wrote an excellent article on LinkedIn about the challenges of being autistic and working in the NHS, and you acknowledge that many autistic people classify themselves as having a disability, and certainly many of our traits can be very disabling. And I'm very able to do many things, but what I find the biggest barrier in the workplace is the lack of support and accommodation for neurodivergent people. I mean, how do you think the workplace should change in order to make it a more inclusive place for autistic community?
Well, I think it's a difficult question, and I think autism, I suppose, and neurodivergence is probably behind a lot of other disabilities. I know that it's actually, autism has the lowest employment rate of all the disabilities. Um, but I think in some ways disabilities kind of, the focus on disability is kind of being lost. We are quite rightly working on improving things for LBGTQ plus. I think I've got that right.
Yeah.
And and different ethnicities, and quite rightly, those things need to be done. But I think in some ways disability is not being brought forward along with those, and it's being left behind. And I think for me, obviously there is the adjustments in the workplace which do help me, but for me what I found much harder to deal with was the attitudes.
Who
I think
amongst, Chantelle? Attitudes who amongst in the workplace did you find difficult?
so from colleagues and management,
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to navigate. I found um, if I
Was it
can
like the hierarchy and who does what and you know that sort of thing?
well, that can be challenging when you're autistic anyway, if it's not clear, the unspoken rules of kind of, but no, it was more in terms of when autism was raised, there was a very negative reaction to that. Um, so
I mean, I understand that you were told, weren't you? I mean, I picked this up and I had to sort of blink and look twice again. You were told within your workplace not to talk about your autism. I
yeah,
mean,
I was.
you know, how did that make you feel and what did that do to you, more to the point?
So I felt awful. I can't even describe it. I felt so confused at what I'd done wrong.
Yeah,
Um, I felt so hurt, and I felt ultimately it just made me incredibly uncomfortable in the workplace. I did not feel comfortable in my own skin in the workplace anymore. I didn't feel comfortable talking. I didn't know what I could say, what I couldn't say. Um, Very difficult to join in conversations because when you're autistic anyway, you've got your narrow range of interests anyway.
yeah,
And obviously, we try to take interest in what other people are interested in, but it's
yeah,
you know it's difficult. We've got our interests, and then I think life experiences, in particular for me, with kind of obviously being quite a geek in my younger years, and then obviously having my mental breakdown, and that's the kind of stuff that I don't talk about in the workplace. That's kind of so it's like, what can I talk about?
yes,
You
I
know,
know. Yeah, I
it's
absolutely
my
get
life
you.
experience. It's,
Yeah,
just like I suppose people with children talk about the children, and this is there's already so much that I don't say, so I don't talk about the in-depths of my mental breakdown. I don't go into details about
no,
that. So it's kind of, it becomes this point where your life experiences aren't valid. You have to kind of erase yourself and pretend that there's something wrong with because we all have different experiences in life, and mine probably do vary more than most, but it's kind of, yeah, and then it's the whole thing of there's something wrong with who I am. I have to be ashamed of it. I have to hide it.
masking. Well, we'll come on to that. We are going to come on to masking, and you know, I hear what you're saying about the struggles that you've had. You know, now that you're diagnosed, and the fact that um, you are getting some accommodations in this company that you're working for, they are doing, you know, the best that they can. But what something you said earlier, I just want to pick up on. It was interesting. It's because autism is a hidden disability. Now, if somebody came into the company in a wheelchair with no legs, they're not going to turn around to the person and say, "Oh, we don't want to accommodate you because you've got no legs. Can you grow them back, please?" You know, I mean, you know, when you're autistic or ADHD, you've got, you know, you're wearing the mask every day just to get through the day. It's exhausting and it's really really hard as all the neurotypicals around you are doing all their different things and working and everything else, and you're just trying to keep under the radar and what you're saying about the special interests, I'd like to come on to you know, perhaps what any of your hobbies or special interests are now, but I get what you're saying, and I suppose something that we can do is keep everything focused to what's in front of you. So if people were to come up to you or to me and say, what did you do this weekend? Have you been to any parties? Or, you know, have you been doing the gardening? Have you been on holiday or anything else? You can just, oh yeah, I've been busy. I've been with my family, and then get back to the work at hand so that you don't feel awkward and you can feel in control, because
I think though,
control is hard, isn't it?
yeah, I think though, the thing is that it's just, obviously there's some things that you don't share. There's some things, like I said, with the mental breakdown that you don't talk about in
Yeah,
your everyday conversation. But autism is a massive part of who I am. Like, I
yes.
don't see why I should have to not talk about it. And I think that I think that in the previous workplace that I worked at, the reason I did talk about it so much was that I was trying to explain, because they didn't necessarily have that understanding, so I felt like I constantly had to. And with the reactions that I'd had for requesting small reasonable adjustments, and when I say reasonable adjustments, it's not like, oh, this is going to cost us loads of money. It's little things like there was an alarm that kept going off. It was like a fire alarm if you left the door open too
Yes.
long, and it was going off all day.
Oh
And
no.
it was horrendous. It's to the point where I was just anxious even anticipating it going off again. And all I asked them to do was to make sure they shut the door behind them.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, the amount of, so then you constantly, so then you get into this habit of constantly explaining yourself and then defending yourself for doing so. So you
Yeah.
talk about it even more. So
Yes.
the more they
Yeah.
kind of make an issue of it, the more you end up like falling back on it. So
Yeah, I mean, they might turn around, for instance, and something like that's happened, an actual event like that's happened with the fire alarm, and you'll make a comment, and then they want to expand the comment when all you wanted to say is, can you close the door behind you? And then it goes from, well, we need you to expand the comment, and now we need to look at the rules of diversity within our handbook. And actually, can you come to a meeting with me and 3 other people? Oh my God, it can just snowball into something when
see
all you
that's
wanted
not
them
quite,
to
I
do.
kind of got that you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then because obviously this was a door that's regularly used at this point.
Yeah.
So obviously that didn't sit very well with me. I got quite upset about it actually, and one of my colleagues very kindly advocated on my behalf. But it got blown up in the head. At one point they said, we can't disconnect the alarm. I said, I've never asked for it to be disconnected. Where's
Yes,
this come from?
yes, yeah, yeah.
It's like this.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that that would happen, and that's not what you want at all. It's gone from one thing to a real mountain out of a molehill. Can you think of any other situations that have been similar when you've asked for what is really quite a simple adjustment just to make your life a little bit easier, and it's gone on and on a bit?
Oh, there's been loads. I can't even think of them all now, but I think there's been so many. It's just, honestly, it's just horrendous. So
I didn't want to put you on the spot. I know it's hard when you've got to kind of suddenly come up with a
yeah,
list of.
it's just been, I think for me this has been the issue. If I've gone to them with, say, a small problem, it's kind of been blown up by almost a fear of dealing with it. It's almost like, oh my goodness, no.
Yeah.
And that's why I've had comments like, I don't want anything to do with disability. Like, because and it's like, you can't say that.
Was this when you were working in the NHS environment?
Yeah, this is when I was working in the NHS. I
So
was
with this job,
to wear a lanyard at one point.
sorry, say that
I
again.
was asked to wear a lanyard at one point because
Yeah.
he kept forgetting that I had a disability, apparently.
So if a company, you know, if an organisation is getting it right, then what that means is that, you know, HR and the people within your department, they know that autistic people that are going to be coming into work, because they've got so much to offer and they're good employees, their knowledge and their skill set is so good. They only really, I mean, for goodness sake, they only need to look down a little A5 leaflet and just say, you know, is this person feeling, are they feeling safe and secure in their body? Are they feeling safe in their environment? And are they feeling safe with the people they're working for?
I think, and this is quite good about the new role that I've applied for, when I disclosed the new role that I'm currently working in,
Yes.
when I disclosed my disability to them, the first thing they said was, what can we help you with? Is there anything we can be doing to help you?
Brilliant. Yes.
And that's, I mean, that's what you want. I think, you know, in an ideal world, you disclose your disability and then you're not forced into it, but before you start, you send all the kind of reasonable adjustments, kind of
That's really good. Yeah.
policy, and then obviously you could choose to do that if you wanted to, and you're told who to contact if you want to pursue that and want any help with that. And because obviously it's, if somebody was in a wheelchair, you wouldn't wait until after they would started.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes the problem when it comes to autism, because even though you might have been struggling without this support in place, they kind of see that as, well, you've been doing it, why are you asking for it now?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think And I think it's foreplanning, isn't it? I think in the same way that, you know, you make sure you've got your disability ramps in, you know, your ramps in place and your lifts. I think you have to start thinking proactively, and it's not, you're not going to be an expert in every single condition out there. Nobody is. This, like I said, my understanding of autism and ADHD has grown massively in recent years.
Yes.
I myself didn't really know a lot about it. But all it takes is if someone's disclosed a disability to you in the workplace, then, like I said, send them the reasonable adjustment documents before they start and give them a contact. Don't force them and pressure them into doing it, but just make sure they've got the documents there. And, you know, if they've disclosed the actual condition that they have, all it takes is a quick Google.
I know it is. But
National Autistic Society site, and
yeah,
you've got a lot of advice there already. And I think in terms of autism, I think a lot of the issues come around communication, and I think in workplaces, often communication can be quite poor. And I think if you look at the internal ways in which you communicate and make that more effective, it won't just benefit your autistic colleagues, it will benefit everybody. If you all know when the workman's going to be disrupting your work, everybody can plan their work more effectively.
That's the same as psychotherapy. When I'm talking to my clients, you see, I might have clients that come in and they don't know that they're neurodivergent, and so they're coming in with anxiety and they're giving me a list of things. It would have been on my website and seen I'm a neurodivergent psychotherapist, but they come in and they don't know. So you know, you've got to be just, you know, open and sensible. And but you know, every school, every hospital, every prison, you know, everybody just needs to have a sheet to say, you know, I don't know, just what we need, and talk to us and ask us. And it's really good. I mean, you're working, you're doing an open university, well, you're doing a university degree, and you're doing that at home. So how do you find studying at home?
So I was initially doing an open university degree till I got the degree apprentice position, and I'm now enrolled with ManMet. So before that, I went to Aberystwyth University for a while. This was around the time when I wasn't particularly well, so unfortunately I didn't manage to finish it. And Aberystwyth University were very supportive, but one of the things that I really liked about the Open University was all the information was there for you. You weren't drip fed it. It really helped with your kind of sense of organising it all, getting it in your head, knowing what to expect, and kind of, you know, you could go for it at your own pace, and that was like hugely beneficial for me. Obviously there were some downsides, so I don't like the fact that it's kind of always hanging over me. Because you know, it's
how long does it
set your timetable. Well, open uni, it varies depending on the course, but at the moment I'm doing a Manchester Met degree now, because I'm not just swapping around every uni. I started off at Aberystwyth when I was very poorly, and then when I got older, I got well again. I decided to carry on my degree with the Open University, and then this job came up, which was the degree with ManMet, and I thought, this is too good to turn down. So I kind of moved for this job, and I do think online learning is quite good. I think at school, I would have found it really good, actually, in a way, because I don't think I was particularly challenged at school. And I think in some ways it means I find it very difficult when I don't instinctively know something or get something, because I don't think I necessarily have the skills to work through it, because I'm used to just opening a book and kind of knowing it already in a way.
And that's why the Open University was good. And I totally understand what you're saying. You know, I like to have all my books, all my research, you know, when it starts, the middle and the end. And if I want to start in the 2/3 of the way through and then come back because it makes more sense to me, I like to do it that way and researching. For me, the idea of drip feeding, I think I'll probably find...
I hate it.
I find it quite hard, but you're
Yeah.
doing it and you're here at this job, and I absolutely really hope that it works itself out and that the person comes back who's going to help you be trained. But when you're not working so hard, and because we all, when we've been masking all day, we come home and we're pretty exhausted and everything else.
Yeah.
But what do you like to do? Whatever it is, what do you like to do when you're at home?
Well, some
You're not
weekends
working.
I just have to have a catch up on sleep every so often. I'll have a weekend where I'm just pretty much wiped out for the weekend. But I have pets. I'm a crazy pet person.
What pets have you got?
So I've got a cat and a rabbit, and my pets are not genetically blessed, shall we say. So
What does that mean?
it means they've got an array of health issues. So my cat has hypothyroidism, cystitis, cardiomyopathy, and is potentially starting with kidney disease. And my rabbit has it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit of a mammoth task keeping on track of all their vet
And an
appointments.
expensive one. How on earth do you afford that? We had health insurance because we had a
Insurance.
cat with, the thyroid and the operation and everything else. And thank God we were insured, because it would have cost a fortune. How do you cope with that?
Well, it's difficult. Obviously, I've got the insurance, which helps, and my
Oh,
pets
good.
know me very, very, very well. So they know that I pay, so they're happy to let me set
Yeah.
up payment plans. But I mean, I had another rabbit that passed away last year, and he had chronic disabilities throughout his entire life. So, and I think some of the expenses and
Yeah,
nobody
but
else
it's
would pay, but they
incredible.
were
It's really
perfect for me.
lovely that you're looking after these animals, and our pets they're
Yeah.
so important to us, and they give us unconditional love, and we don't have to explain our compassion and the way that we look after our pets. And
They gave me a sense, especially the rabbit that passed away last year because he was kind of disabled throughout his entire life.
yeah,
He really came at a time when I was really, really down, and he gave me a purpose in life, and he gave me that sense that, obviously, like I said, there was times when I feel like nobody would have noticed if I wasn't there.
yeah.
Didn't really make any difference,
Funny,
and to him
funny
I would
definitely
have.
does.
And because
Yeah,
he, even like the tangible, he needed his medication, and
yeah,
a lot of people would have just put him down, but he's still
yeah.
happy. I can give him something that other people can't give him. And also, I suppose, seeing from the other side that those other people might have written him off because he was disabled, and yet he had so much to give, and he could still have these happy, he could still be happy and live a happy life, and he did for the majority of his life. He had some struggles, and sometimes
Sounds
when we
like
was at the
you
vet a lot.
learn, yeah, you learn a lot from your pets about your own, your own life, and they're sentient beings. And at the end of the day, Chantelle, we are just human beings. We're a subgroup of the great apes. We're primates. Yeah, and that is what we are, and we're animals, and we very much love our animals. I love nature. I mean, do you get the opportunity to just spend time outside?
Not as often as I should. So I have in the past struggled with agoraphobia,
Yes, yeah.
and I'm not so bad now. And obviously I go to work and that, but I'm still not great at just going out without a purpose or without a set thing to do. I don't know why. I think it's that thing of, yeah, I think it's partly obviously the way I experience my autism, but I broke my foot many years ago now, and I think it's that fear that, oh, what if I can't get back? Because
Yes, yeah, yeah.
and I think I don't like going out without a plan, so I don't do it as often as I should. But I do like getting out in nature when I can. I'm very lucky that I live close to a kind of small woodland,
Oh, lovely.
so like a country park, so I can pop
But
down
that's
there.
enough, isn't it? We don't have to
Yeah.
start hiking up the Himalayas and doing all that sort of thing. It's just getting some fresh air, being outside if the rabbits are
Yeah, I mean,
outside.
it is something again that now I'm getting better. I am kind of building up, and I am doing more. So I'm trying to go out venture out a bit further, venture out a bit more. But I think for me at the moment, my main focus has to be obviously my pets and this new job and degree.
Yes,
And
that's quite a
sometimes I just
lot.
need a sleep afterwards, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's really important just to decompress. I mean, I've just started Grey's Anatomy. I'm on season 2, and I love Grey's Anatomy. And there's always a box set to binge watch, and I have to do it. That's what I do in my, because I work at home and then I go off to my therapy room. But when I'm at home, I have my lunch and I sit down for 2 episodes of Grey's Anatomy. Or horror. I love horror films because they calm me down, Chantelle. Horror films calm me down. So, we all have something that we do to decompress and to calm down.
I tend to have like I'll get obsessed with watching something for a while, and then I won't do it. And The Sims, I quite like The Sims, and quite like just watching very rubbish things that I can just get lost in.
Well, it's music, isn't it? It's music. It's something for the mind. It just keeps us going. And you have such you've got a busy life, and we're just sort of coming to the end of our lovely interview now. And I suppose just to really wrap it up, it's not a question that's here, but it's just a very, very sort of straightforward question. What do you want to see, moving forward in society, in the workplace, and education? What is the sort of overarching thing you want to see as far as autism is concerned, and how it's supported?
I think in terms of autism, I mean, we actually, there's so much that needs to be done. It's quite difficult to know where to even begin. So I've recently been researching the new National Autism Strategy. Autism, I think, is the only disability that has its own act, there's the Autism Act, and it's shocking when you look at it. Lifespan 16 years less than the national average.
Yeah.
Premature deaths, the lowest employment rates, high numbers of children unhappy in schools.
Suicide.
Yeah, that's one of the 2 most common causes of premature death. Because we, in every single area, we experience more premature deaths apparently, but in particular in suicides and epilepsy. The fact that 70% of adults don't feel like they're getting enough support. And I think I recently went to a focus group for Scope, and I can't say too much obviously because I want to respect the confidentiality of the members, but we were talking, and one of the things that came up is they kind of went, oh well, ask your support worker to help you get out more. And I was like, I don't have a support worker. And like, oh,
I don't necessarily want to get
your social worker to get you. And I thought, I haven't got a social worker. They were like, well, who have you got? I was like, when you're autistic, you have nothing.
Yeah.
It's just you kind of navigating your way through life. And I think, for me, I've always been able to do the big things better than the little things, and the little things can trip me up.
Yes,
so all your general life admin, all your little basic day-to-day tasks, and sometimes I think if they just give you little supports for those things, you could go on and do like absolutely massive things. But I just get stuck on these little tiny tasks like cooking my tea.
Yeah.
It's just massive. But ask me to go and write an essay for my uni, and I'll do.
Well, please write more, because I really loved your article. I love the way you write. I love what you say, and there were lots of comments after your article, and you can advocate, and by taking action when you've got a tiny little bit of space in between studying and working, you've definitely got something to say and a lot of experience behind you. So Chantelle, thank you so much for the time that we've had today. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and all I can say really, I wish you all the best in this new job, and look after your pets and they'll
keep you busy.
and their differences, and just have a great rest of the week. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for listening to the Neurodivergence and Mental Health podcast. Links and resources will be at the end in the show notes. I very much look forward to meeting you again. Thanks for listening. Bye.